Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new video, and welcome back to day 39 of our F125 Wet Hotlap and Setup series. Yes, we return this weekend to the shortest track on the Formula 1 calendar, at least in terms of lap time. We're back here at the Red Bull Ring. Of course, this weekend, back at Austria. Of course, this circuit, one of those ones on the F1 calendar that's easy to learn, difficult to master. In the wet conditions though, because there are quite a few precise elements to this circuit, it can be really difficult to try and maximise time around here. It's very much a circuit that is all about confidence, all about feeling kind of happy with the machinery underneath you, and getting those practice laps in so you can make sure you're getting the car put in all of the right places. Of course, if you don't know what this series is about, we basically go through, I provide you with race-ready setups inside F125. I talk you around each of the circuits on the calendar, where you want to be braking, kind of gears, reference points, all of that good stuff. And then last but not least, I leave you with a hot lap. As always, timestamps will be linked down in the description below if you just want to head to a certain part of this video as well. But yeah, without further ado then, let's head out onto the circuit. I must admit, I think this place in the wet is really good fun. We're making our way then down in towards the final corner, getting ready to start a lap then here of the Red Bull Ring. Make sure you're nice and early on the throttle as you make your way out of that final turn, but keep the car over on the left-hand side as we climb the hill in towards turn 1. Leave it in 7th gear. You want to be braking right as you get to the 100-meter board in towards that first corner. As always in the wet, be very careful that you don't lock up the front brakes, but bring the car nice and gently down all the way into 3rd gear. Now, you can take a lot of curb on the inside. The F1 game pretty forgiving there. As you can see, I mean, we clearly put both front wheels over the white line, but yeah, we'll let you get away with it. Take a little bit of curb on the exit, but don't try to run too wide, and then once you get into 4th gear, you're going to mash your foot to the floor. Of course, turn 2, never much of a corner in the dry or the wet, but try and get the car wedged over the curb ready for turn 3. Again, braking at the 100-meter board, leave the car in 7th gear up the hill, all the way down to 2nd, and then try to rotate the car in 2nd gear. This traction zone, the first of 3, I think are really horrible around this lap in the wet. Once you get them into 4th gear on the exit, you can short shift up to it. That's when you want to try and get full throttle in the car. If you try and do it in 2nd or 3rd, you're going to be doing the reverse layout of this venue. Once again, you're going to be all the way up in 7th gear. Once again, you're going to be braking at the 100-meter board, but of course, where this is the first downhill braking zone of the lap, you have got to be really extra careful that you don't lock up the front brake and understeer out wide. I like to try and get as close to the inside curb as I can, but avoid kind of running over it. And then just like in the dry, pretty much about here, just in front of the car, there's kind of a dip off the corner. Once you get past that, that is when you want to then try and get up through 4th gear, and obviously again, foot flat to the 4. Bring the car all the way up into 6th gear on the exit, aiming for the 50-meter board on the outside. Bring the outside wheels over the curb there, down 2 gears through the first part. Try and leave it in 4th gear if you can, because it just means the traction on the exit is a little bit easier. You can get on the throttle nice and tidy. As soon as you get towards that 2nd kind of white line on the runoff area, that's when you want to be rotating the car in, and then again, really difficult to put the power down. 5th gear, again, I like to take a little bit of that inside curb, but avoid it for the most part, and then down in towards the final corner. Just before the 50-meter board, down a gear, rotate the car in. I like to go down 2 gears, just to make sure you get the front end to bite. Open up the car as best as you can, down another 2 gears, ready for the final corner, and then get on that throttle nice and early once you've shifted back up into 4th there. Like I said, it's a really easy track to learn, a really difficult one to master inside this game, but especially in the wet, so many of the braking zones are from 7th gear down and braking at the 100-meter board, so yeah, you haven't got too much to learn around this track, but it's a really good circuit for kind of learning how to handle traction in the wet as well. So I would say if you're spinning out and things like that, load up, obviously, a Grand Prix mode in heavy wet conditions, do some laps around this circuit, fill up the car with some fuel. But anyway, let's head back to the pit lane then, and I'll talk you guys through the setup. We're taking a look then at the numbers in the car. 3529 wing, exactly the same as I was running in the dry conditions here. Yes, when we go back through and I take another look at all the dry setups in F125, I think we might run ever so slightly less aero around here. You are incredibly tyre limited in the dry, and of course, obviously, with those 3 DRS zones back to back, you can afford to run a little bit more wing as long as you can stick with the guy in front, especially obviously through Sector 2. That is really, really useful. But in the wet, of course, where there's no DRS zones, you want to have that little bit of extra speed over some of your rivals. So yeah, 35.29 I found worked great in the dry, and still works great in the wet as well inside this game. 100 on throttle diff, 25 off throttle. Again, I'm kind of finding that the meta is shifting slowly more towards completely locked on throttle diff and then running the off throttle diff slightly more unlocked as well. We're seeing more and more of those extremes become more and more normal inside F125. Minus 3.4, minus 1.9, 0.03, 0.13. Again, you are quite tyre limited around here. It should be a fairly safe one-stop strategy, but hopefully this will just allow you to look after the tyres a little bit more and not run into too many problems with them. 36.7 for your front and rear suspension, 7.10 for your anti-roll bars, and then 24.50 for your ride heights. Again, most of those ever so slightly more neutral than what we run in the dry conditions. 55.97 brake pressure and bias. Again, I found myself struggling a little bit with front lockups, but it was manageable. And of course, you want that brake pressure quite high because it does mean you can brake later than other drivers into corners. You know, there is plenty of time to be found by running it more extreme. But of course, on the other hand, if you're really struggling with it, then there's more time to be lost by spinning out or locking up and crashing into the back of the guy in front of you. Last but not least then, on your pressures, completely maxed out fronts, 23.5 on the rears. Again, fairly standard inside this game. Just allows you to obviously manage the tyre temperature, especially if you're running surface and carcass. But there we go then. That is going to be the complete guide for the Austrian Grand Prix inside F125. A massive thank you to everybody for the continued support on this series. As always, if these do help you out, leave a like, get yourself subscribed. We'll be back very soon, back at Silverstone. I think a wet setup for the British Grand Prix is probably very useful inside this game.